Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back at ECCMID TV Live. We are on the clock again. It is 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Central European time, and I am very happy to announce that I have another live guest with me in the studio. We are speaking now with a local ESCMID member who comes here from Cologne in Germany, where we are broadcasting to you from. I'm very proud to introduce you to Professor Oliver Cornely, who is a professor in translational research and also an infectious disease physician at the University of Cologne here in Germany. So a warm welcome to you, Oliver.
Thank you very much.
Very happy you had the time to come in here.
It was never as easy as this time.
Yes, exactly, and that for an online conference this year.
Yes.
Yeah, well, we're very happy to have you. Could you just first tell us a little bit, what is your personal specialty area?
It's clinical infectious diseases, and then within that, it's usually fungal infections. I mean, attached to the hospital, whatever comes, yeah, whatever causes a fever. But usually it's fungal infections, which I work most of my time in. And then recently, I mean, over the last year and a bit, of course, it's COVID-19 as well.
And hard to go around it, yes.
Indeed, yes. And,
yeah.
and there is some overlap, actually, between both fields.
Yeah. So how come fungal infections caught your specific interest? Is it something that was historical in the institution you work in, or...?
Yeah, it's actually not historical in the institution, but it's historical for me, so to say. It is like my first training was hematology, actually, and the biggest problem in hematology used to be bacterial infections, but then there was a phase where bacterial infections were actually well controlled, and fungal infections were the most impactful problem in these patients.
And how come? Was there a reason for that?
I guess it has always been a lot of fungal infections, but they are difficult to diagnose, so you need some dedication to diagnose them. And then actually, it's not too long ago, we didn't really use CT scanning, for example, of the lung, where the majority of these fungal infections will actually be. Yeah. And well, with more CT scans, then you find more of these infections, and you need to be a bit diagnostically aggressive to find them.
Yeah. Yeah. So better diagnostics and more awareness for the fungal infections. Yeah. Yeah. So is this year's ECCMID 2021, is it serving our ESCMID members who with a personal interest in fungal infections well? Is there enough on fungal infections this year?
Well, it's never enough, of course, but there is a lot of fungal infections this year. And what I specifically really like is that you have a real fungal track, so to say, in the program, like for other areas, and you can easily access and find it. We didn't have that in prior ECCMIDs, or at least you would have had to go through the, well, back then, paper programs and tick all the boxes and circle all the things that you want to see, and that would somehow evolve into a fungal track maybe.
So am I hearing you give a compliment to the online version of ECCMID because of the easier way to find the lectures and sessions in your field of area?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, fortunately, there are some advantages to missing out on the personal contact.
There are some, yes, indeed. Yeah. So today I could reach ECCMID with just a 20-minute drive. That has never been the case in the past, and of course I can log on from the hospital or from at home or while I'm on the road. And tomorrow I'll go on vacation. I could never do that during ECCMID, but I will take ECCMID with me, so to say, on my computer. So it's
so you'll be going on holiday with your fungal infections.
Indeed, yes, that's what I always dreamed of.
Yeah,
vacation
I can
with
imagine.
Fungi.
Absolutely. So, are there any specific sessions or lectures that caught your eye?
Well, I very much liked, of course, it's always a highlight, the ESCMID award lectures, the science awards, and the Excellence Award. And Hermann Goosen's presentation is, of course, really impressive, and and he's so young, okay, so but still has accomplished so much, and it's a very nice story of collaboration, pan-European collaboration, EU and beyond, and and it was achieved a lot, and so that lecture certainly is something. If you missed it, you need to go back, and it will be online or is already online because it has been given during the last days.
Yeah, so definitely for our viewers, it's easier to find your lectures. I just heard here, but also they become available within 24 hours after they've been held, and will be available on demand for you for 3 months after. So there's enough opportunity to look up the interesting sessions we're talking about here. So please don't refrain from doing so.
So it's the end of the statement, like, oh, I missed that one.
Yeah.
No longer.
No, we can't.
No way
we
to
can't
miss
hide
it.
behind that anymore.
Yeah.
No, no. So, so you've had some interesting sessions in your specialty area, but you also mentioned just in the beginning of our talk that you also had a new interest area, COVID-19. How is that coming along? Are you following a lot of sessions and lectures here on ECCMID on the subject?
Yes, that is what I will specifically do during the rest of this day and tomorrow. There is some late breaker information on COVID-19 and on vaccines, so that'll be highly interesting. The combination, for example, of COVID vaccine and influenza. There's one there is one paper that I
the combination of both vaccines.
Yes, exactly. Because if we need a third vaccine, we don't really know that, but likely at least some of us will need a third dose, and that will be around the time where we usually would use the or deliver the influenza vaccine. So. It'll be interesting to know whether that can be done together. I'm confident, or whether that will have some adverse effects.
And there are going to be some results presented, or
I hope so.
Is it more of a brainstorm of experts?
The header reads like results.
Okay, so you're really looking forward to getting some news that will help you change or implement it in your own practice.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because you work a lot with the vaccines as well, right? Or you do research with them?
Recently. So what we usually do is clinical trials, and that's what my team is, where the expertise is. For fungal infections, bacterial, viral, whatever, as long as it is an infection. And it could range from diagnostic studies or prophylactic to treatment studies. So we sometimes say over coffee, we are the engineers that you might need at some point when you have a molecule and you want this to become a drug and available. And we design clinical trials so that you ask the right questions and then design the trial in a fashion that you can get an answer to that question. And
do you think it's often underestimated how important the design of the trial is?
Yes, certainly it is. In the academic world, it's massively underestimated. However, with COVID and with the platform trials that allowed COVID to, with the adaptive trial forms, that allowed to, for example, learn about dexamethasone and learn about all the drugs that have been used that were not doing
effective.
Were not really useful, it was just trial and error type of things. Well, many of these questions have been answered by the platform trials from the UK and from actually the Netherlands, and that is of course highly interesting. And I guess that will give a boost to understanding and realizing that clinical trial design is super important.
And quite difficult, I can imagine, or probably not if you have the expertise already.
I didn't want to say that, but of course it's the most impressive and difficult task ever.
Well, especially with a whole new virus, a new field in which you're operating. How do you know you're asking the right questions?
I mean, there are always similarities. So with Corona, we knew, or we thought that certain things might happen that we already knew from influenza or from other respiratory viruses. Of course, we didn't expect at the beginning that there would be effects on all the different tissues and organs that corona has, and I doubt that influenza does that, but on the lung and the lung infections that then follow the viral infection, that is something that
that was anticipated.
Yeah, we did expect that, and very early on, for example, we looked for, well, maybe that was the mycologist's perspective view on a virus. So very early on, we tested all our patients and screened the very sick ones, ICU patients with acute respiratory distress syndrome. We tested them for fungal infections occurring on top of the viral infections, and found Aspergillus and later then Mucor.
Yeah. So can you also tell me a little bit more about organizing vaccine trial networks? Because that is something you are very involved in, I believe.
We actually did from the Cologne group, we had a lot of networks, and being part of international networks, some are actually networks that we did set up, the fungal field, other fields. And now there was that issue that we would love to have more vaccine trials, corona-directed vaccines, happening in Europe, which is simply not the case, although quite some of the vaccines have been developed in Europe, but then the clinical development is done in the United States or some other parts of the world.
What is the reason for that?
I think it's more complex to organize clinical trials in Europe, just because you have, well, given the EU, 27 countries, and then in the entire Europe, I think it's...
They have different local regulations,
Yes,
and it
yeah,
makes it difficult
exactly.
to unify.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the European Commission, European Union are harmonizing these, well, different regulations and rules, and quite some are already following, quite some countries following the same rules and regulations, but you still submit to the individual countries, and so it's a huge burden, the pure organization of the trial, and that could be easier, and we see that it's getting easier and easier all the time through European harmonization.
Through the networks.
Yes. Well, then the networks, when we saw the need, and the European Commission saw the need for a vaccine trial network, which simply was inexisting, then what we did is we reached out through everybody in the other networks that we already had or are part of, and now we have a lot of centers. We have more than 450 centers in, I guess it's 37 countries right now. It's a moving target because there are always like 10%.
And these are the vaccine trial centers?
Yes, that's centers.
Or are they just for COVID-19 vaccines?
Well, I think they can do both, and we asked them broadly whether they have done vaccine trials, and if not, whether they would want to do vaccine trials. And then there are different layers. So a few have done phase 1 studies. Others do what we now focus on, phase 2 and phase 3 studies, and so it's a mix. And we know a lot about these centers. So what we do is if there is a study, we can ask who wants to take part, and we can narrow that a bit down to those who are most promising or highly interested and want to build capacity in that area. Yeah. We call the network, by the way, Vaccelerate, because we want to accelerate vaccine clinical development.
Accelerate, yeah. I can imagine with this large collaboration, or this many collaborations at the same time within the network, you're yielding an enormous amount of data. Is that the case?
That's true. Yes, that's true. And
in a very accelerated way. So I can understand where the name comes from now.
Yes, and currently we are working on the structure. So it's the centers, and then we do have volunteer registries in more and more of the European countries, where people can register to and just signal, yes, I would be willing to be part of a clinical trial, healthy volunteers, or more and more volunteers with a underlying condition. And so we do have these people ready to go. Once a clinical trial is being started, then they can be enrolled rapidly.
Yeah. So, excuse me. Is there a way for example, our ECCMID attendees to learn more about Vaccelerate?
Absolutely, yes. Vaccelerate.eu, or you can follow us. Vaccelerate_EU is the Twitter handle. And there is one poster on Vaccelerate because we just started
during this year's ECCMID.
Yeah, because we just started in February the whole exercise, and somewhere mid-February or so we just thought of, oh, it could be the name Vaccelerate. and it's about 150 researchers actually throughout Europe, and 26 countries was the number of countries we started with, and there is that poster, and that explains on the network itself, and then the registries. And the registry is there in, I don't know how many different languages, like 20 plus, but it will be even more. For example, we have 4 languages to cover Spain. We have 6 to reach about 97% of the German population. So we have a large community of a large Italian community, a large Turkish community. So we offer it in the country, not only in German, but in a number of different languages. And that is the case in quite some other countries too. So yeah, I guess that that should be a good poster. John Salmonton Garcia from my group in Cologne is the one to present it.
Is the first author?
Yes, exactly.
Well, for our viewers, if you want to take a look at this poster, you can just look it up on the platform or in the scientific program, Vaccelerate European Coronavirus Vaccine Trial Accelerator Program. And you can find it under the e-poster. So take a look if you want to know more about it.
And one can do that 24/7, right?
24/7.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
So this year's ECCMID is offering you almost everything that you are currently very much involved in.
That's true, yes. It offers me what the group is involved in, what I'm involved in, of course, and then it offers. I mean, there are always some gaps in the calendar, and that they are rapidly filled with other topics
other
of
interesting
interest. Yes,
snippets.
of course, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And I'm really keen to see whether I learn something about clinical trial design regarding vaccines, because in Vaccelerate we will start 3 clinical trials, highly likely, because the European Commission is very open to fund these trials. And we always try to find the gaps, so the underserved populations, where are the public health needs that have not been addressed in clinical trials. And that's where we want to go with our trials that we run on this platform.
Okay. So, and is this ECCMID also offering you enough opportunity for interaction with colleagues in the same specialty area?
Well, I mean,
or is it more difficult this year?
Yes, it's of course more difficult, but and that's what I miss most, of course.
Yeah.
Actually, during a regular ECCMID, it's difficult for me to go to all the sessions that I would love to listen to, because I meet so many people.
Yeah.
And yeah, that is why usually in ECCMID there is this huge lunch break. These, like, isn't it 2 hours or so in the middle of the day, which is fantastic because there you can meet everybody and all
the networking time
networking,
slot.
and then all the scientific working groups, of course, where they meet. So that is what I'm currently missing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, luckily you managed to create this interesting network even without the ECCMID, but hopefully we're all hoping that next year there will be a better opportunity for all our ESCMID members to come together and swap out experiences and.
So where will next year's ECCMID be?
Ooh, that's a very good question. Lisbon.
Oh, yes, of course, Lisbon.
Lisbon,
yes,
Portugal.
Actually, I knew that.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. So very much looking forward to that already, but we still have a day and a half to go in this year's ECCMID.
Yeah.
So I would like to thank you very much for coming here live in the studio, which is also for us a very pleasant change, and for sharing this information on what you are doing, what you're working on with your research group, and how you're experiencing ECCMID. I think our viewers have gotten a lot of inspiration and have an idea what to look for now also during these coming sessions. So thank you very much, Oliver, for coming in and taking the time.
A pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And for our viewers, As you probably will expect from us already, we will be back on the clock in 1 hour or less than 1 hour. We will be back at 3 o'clock sharp with one of our members of the executive office of ESCMID again. Jesus Rodriguez Baño will be here, and we will talk a little bit more about how he is experiencing this year's ECCMID and in relation to previous years. Tune in at 3. We will see you back then.